how to be a superhero for yourself and others, is a discussion on spiral dynamics action. So there's many different ways that I could do this presentation and many different directions. And I wasn't quite sure which way to go, but so this is the direction that I went. So really what I want to do is present a whole bunch of ideas and see what you guys like, don't like, and we can go from there. But really the idea is to try to use spiral dynamics in a practical way, like trying to find ways to use spiral dynamics to help ourselves and to help others. All right, so here's some practical thoughts that I'm exploring. In my opinion, being open-minded is the #1 most important ability. If you want to move, well, for moving up the spiral, I think being open-minded is important. Not that I think moving up the spiral is as important as people think, which I'm going to touch on. But I think for growing horizontally and vertically, it's really important. And so my definition is being able to entertain a thought without accepting it. And I think constructive criticism is really important as well. Being able to take other people's insight, take what works and get rid of what doesn't. And so here is the core of my current thinking of this spiral. I think that way too many people are focused on moving up the spiral and moving other people up the spiral. And I think that is not the best use of energy, because especially like looking up the spiral, I think it's a big ego trap. Like I think a lot of people think that if they reach turquoise or reach coral, that it will make some kind of like profound like difference in their life where they're going to be super happy and everything will be great. But I'm not really sure that's the case. And it's a never-ending road. So like there's really no end to like being able to go up, at least as far as we know. So I think horizontal growth and being able to look down also is really important, because it can create more stable vertical growth. And spiral dynamics helps us to identify areas that we need to work on, and we can create healthy pieces of the ego, because I think each level of the spiral is a piece of our ego. And also we can't move ourselves or others up. It's really about the life conditions changing, that and us realizing that like the current level that we're at, that we need a new level of thinking. That's what changes it. That's what helps us go up. And so I like to think of it as a Jenga tower, where if our Jenga tower is just one piece each, and then like we're not doing our horizontal growth like in each level, then the Jenga tower is like really easy to topple over, and that we need to like quote like fill in the space for for our Jenga tower. Like we want to create like a strong base. And I really like the Jenga tower analogy, because like let's say like you could have someone who's like maybe starting to have like yellow thinking, but let's say they're red, their impulsiveness isn't filled out in their Jenga tower. Like that tower is going to topple over really quickly. And I think you see that a lot with different gurus that are quote gurus that have relationships like with their with their followers, and like they're abusive and all that stuff. So along with that, I think another fun way to think of it is like guitar strings. Like, do you want seven guitar strings that are out of tune, or 3 harmonious strings? And related to that, I've been thinking about like what would you rather have? Someone who's maybe reaching yellow thinking, but like any old thing like just sets them off, or their tower topples easily? Or do you want like someone who's like a really healthy blue, or even red, or a lower level but at a healthier level? Because I much prefer like the healthy blue. And I think that people that are at healthy levels of the different stages that they're at in the spiral, I think that they help me learn how to be healthy myself in those different areas. Because I have friends from pretty much every level of the spiral. Um, and so I do think that there's a connection with the concepts of King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, which is um, Carl Jung has 12 archetypes, and this is following Carl Jung's work where they condensed it into 4. Um, and I think spiral dynamics is really useful because it can help us see where someone is coming from and not take it personally. So if you know someone has their gravity in blue or red or whatever, um, if you're able to tell that, like you can tell like that they're where they're coming from isn't personal to you. That's just where their thinking currently is, and that they're not able to really think outside that scope yet. So my friend put it like really really well. You can't be mad at a duck for being a duck, but you can work on not letting them bite you, um, and also learn to speak at their level. If someone's at like a certain level, like realizing they're at that level and trying to address them at that level, I think that helps a lot. And I think that this is kind of at the core of things. This is what I'm really working on, this idea from James Ludwig. He's a member of our group. And he says that therapeutic self-insight plus mindfulness equals salvation. And you can change salvation with freedom. And I'm going to cover this a little bit later on. But so these are just ideas to think about. I would love to know what you guys think. And because I'm sure all this can be expanded on. Like I said, like I'm super open-minded, hopefully, and I very much welcome constructive criticism. But I think that these are all important directions to take a look at. And so this is the Jenga tower, a funny little animation, I think. So you want like a nice stable Jenga tower, otherwise like a little breeze knocks it over. And so I personally find that looking at King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, and the spiral dynamics, can't talk, and spiral dynamics is very useful because it helps bring like a visual representation to the different levels of the spiral. And so it also for me helps me to recognize like what are different ways that the spiral can be, like different levels can be healthy and unhealthy. And so I'm mostly going to go over the like the man's version of it, or the male version of it. That's because what I'm mostly familiar with. And so I've actually reordered it a little bit in the last week. And so if people want to dig more into this, you're more than welcome to. I'm just going to touch on it lightly. But so I think purple is the level of the magician. And this is a lot about like what are the stories and myths that we listen to, and also create for ourselves. And what is our own personal stories? And I think very interestingly, purple is at almost the base. It's really a part of our foundation. And so that to me makes me think that our core stories are so foundational to us. Like whether we have stories for ourselves that like I'm a loser, like I stink, or like I have this superpower, I have this superpower, like I have this ability, I have this ability, like I'm doing well, like that the story that we tell ourselves, I think, really helps to determine like whether our tower is going to be structurally sound or not. Is any little breeze in our life going to topple our tower? And so for King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, there are shadow versions of each archetype, and I think they're really interesting to look at to see what are the unhealthy and what are the unhealthy versions of each level or archetype. And I'm not going to go into that too much, but one of the things that I really liked from the book called The Four Agreements, where it was talking about using white magic with ourselves and not dark magic. And so that's essentially talking about words, because words are actually magic if you think about it. for most people, like if you go up to them and tell them, like you suck, or you're ugly, or I hate you, generally that's going to make them angry. And if you tell someone, I think you're great, I think you're an awesome human being, that's going to make them feel good. So just the power of words, like it really is magic. Like you're actually manifesting things like in other people. Um, and it's pretty it's pretty simple too. It's just like words are so powerful, and I think more powerful than we might realize. Right. So that's a big part of my presentation. So red, we have the warrior. Boundaries and self-esteem are I think part of healthy parts. And so I was thinking about it. I think blue is, I called it the prince, because I think this is where we actually adopt other people's rules. And like if we're in a school system, like we adopt like the rules of the school, because usually people enter blue around school age, like maybe like around like 10 or so. Um, and what are healthy rules for us to adopt? Um, and then I think orange is where we start to create our own rules for our kingdom. And I think the king and the magician and the warrior work together to, like conquer the world, so to speak, to, like go out and, like make the world their own. Um, Green is the lover. And, there's many different versions of, well, I guess there's the different health levels of green, but also it's not like talking about like a lover so much like in a sexual sense, but like loving other people, like loving the world, loving the environment. Um, and I know for me, I had rose-colored glasses where I saw like the best in everyone, and I eventually realized that it's important to, try to see the best in everyone, but also look at things clearly, to see how people see people, see how people are for their, for how they really are. And I one thing that I want to explore more at some point is the shadows, like in terms of mean green. Um, because I can definitely see, a lot of the people that are in kind of mean green and like, the social justice warriors, being in kind of the impotent lover stage, because they don't feel important, and they're trying to have a sense of importance through their such as social justice warrior. um and yeah, like so a lot of their you existence and meaning is based on what they're doing, and that's why it's really hard to change their mind. But that's a whole different talk. Just something fun to think about. um and so I think that yellow is learning to have them all start working together in harmony and balance each other out. And so I think it's the same thing like with the spiral. It's, like going down the spiral and working towards, trying to get a healthy level of each level of the spiral so they can work together. And also same thing with King War, Magician, and Lover. Um, so hopefully that's interesting. All right. And so now we have, I'm just going to talk quickly on things that James mentioned. And I think that this is like really important for us to start taking a look at. I'm definitely taking a look at it for myself, because I really like how it's like a simplified form of, um, of being able to work on ourselves and sort through the different levels. And so I think that spiral dynamics is really useful for, being able to see what parts of ourselves that we need to work on. There's a, there's a lot of shadow work exercises. Ken Wilber has some. There's some for in King Warrior, Mission Lover. I think it pretty much all started with Young, and I found this really useful to create a trigger slash fear list. Just having both lists like really actually helped me to figure out areas of myself that I needed to work on. And I still have a lot. I actually have my trigger list like right here. And actually, yeah, here's my trigger list, and here's my fears list. And you can see it's extensive. I still have a lot of work to do, but it's I'm improving it little by little. And a little shout out to Amelia Hartsfield. Um, she introduced the drama triangle to us and the empowerment triangle, and I think that it's incredibly useful to see where you're playing a victim, where you're playing a persecutor, and how to avoid being a rescuer. Um, and really, the big thing that I'm working on is learning to let go. Um, the idea of all I know is that I know nothing. Letting go of cravings and you know, learning to like recognize the cravings and to just let them go. And so that's a part of mindfulness and being mindful of my thoughts, especially cravings and delusion. Watch them instead of being them. Some of the best advice that I ever got was from an elderly gentleman that I was walking with. Um, and I was talking to him about how my friend realized that I have an issue with being reactive. And of course, like he saw me reactive when I was driving, and where I live has really bad drivers. But so I guess it's good for shadow work. But he gave me his advice on how to deal with uh anger. And that is, like when he starts feeling it come on, he says, I see you, like, I see what you're trying to do. Um, and then he just lets it float down the river. And I think more interestingly, I think that's great. It's really, really helped me. It's made a huge difference. And so what I've actually tried to do is actually have conversations with the different archetypes and ask them, why are you angry in this situation? You talk to them as if they're like, a separate person. Like, why are you angry? And like, listen to it, like work on listening to like what my mind and body is trying to tell me. And then react accordingly. Um, and I think it's really important too to try to recognize like what are the triggers so that we can actually go down to the root of it too. Because if we don't actually directly address it, if we just do something like, like feed our face or even exercise just to like try to get rid of it, that the weed's just gonna go grow back. But if we can go down to the root and pull out the root, then I think that is really what can make lifelong difference. Um, yeah, so uh, also trying to make sure that the wheel doesn't go spinning off on our heads. Um, Learning to be mindful of our thoughts because it's so easy for us to have a thought, and I know for me at least, and then it like spin off into like so many different things where I'm like not even like even close to like where I was originally like with that original thought. And so learning to come back to it, you can use the breath. And I think really, really important, and I should have made this more important, I think, in the beginning, is learning to listen to yourself and other people. Um, and because I know for me, a lot of times, like in conversations, I would, not be listening to the person. I'd be thinking about like what I wanted to say next. And, or like my brain would be off like spinning about something that they said or something that I want to say. And I'm not actually listening to what they're saying. So learning to, and also learning to do that for myself too, instead of listening to myself, my brain going off into all these different wheels and directions. So I think being able to listen to other people and listen to others, or yeah, listen to others and listen to ourselves is really important, and along the importance of being open minded. Um, and so just some ideas. Um, I really like his name is Naval, and you can just look up Naval meditation. It's on YouTube, but it's really just 1 hour just letting the mind go. And I really like to do shadow work during that time, and also think about anything that I need to think about. And I used to do a form of that like when I was doing my video game work, and I found it incredibly useful. I was actually solving problems that I wasn't able to solve, like when I was like not like hyper focused, um, and yeah, because I was doing things that had never been done before, so I didn't really have anyone that I could ask either. But yeah, focusing on the breath, and yeah, focusing like trying to look for space between the thoughts, like not letting the thoughts like go crazy, trying to like slow your thoughts down a little bit. But so this is really its own presentation for some time, but I thought that these are some great ideas to for us to look at. All right, so here's my book. And so I think that um my I think that my book can really help with spiral dynamics and horizontal growth. And I think the idea is to help kids and adults become more well adjusted. And so I actually wrote this book for myself too. So when I find my giant tower needs a little love, I can go actually back to the book, and it helps me to remind myself and recenter myself of, what I need to be working on. And I'm sure it could use improvement, and I would love suggestions from you guys. And just as a note, um, I wrote the book maybe like 3 or 4 months before um, I found out about spiral dynamics, but I thought it was very interesting, like how much spiral dynamics stuff or related content, in my opinion, is actually in the book. And now that I have more information on spiral dynamics, I want to use spiral dynamics to write future books. Um, and so I'll be very interested in your guys' opinions on that. How well does it correlate with spiral dynamics? But yeah, so I think helping people become well adjusted, as we talked about, we want to hopefully have them be playing harmonious music. We don't want 7 strings of discord. All right. And so I picked the concept of the superhero quite deliberately. I put a lot of thought to it. There's many levels of it, and it actually turns out that it was an even better fit than I thought, because I do believe that that the superhero is the perfect blend of the spiral and also the king, warrior, magician, lover, because we have the leadership part of the king, we have the warrior, we have creating, that's part of the magician, um, and caring about others in the planet, which is the lover. And I think it's them blending together that we get an ideal superhero. Um, People love superheroes, so it's a great way to get them, into the content, get them excited about it. Um, and I think it's great, what I call a Trojan horse, because in my opinion, adults are a lot tougher to try to get information to. Generally, they're a lot more closed-minded than kids tend to be. And so my thought was that if I could get the book to the kids, and the parents are reading the book to the kids, or even the kids are just relaying the information, um, that's a way to get the information to the adults, and help the adults as well. And it's actually worked out pretty well so far. There's some great stories about it. Let's see. Yeah, and so I think that the book and the concept can really help with self improvement, self discovery, and I think it's really important to be able to help yourself first, so that you can help others. Yeah, because if you aren't healthy, then it is much harder to help others. Um, and I think with superheroes, like too, like you could lead by example and be the change you want to see. Um, and I also really like the idea that the book focuses on being proactive, and I think the idea of being a superhero too is the fact that you can be a superhero. It helps you be proactive versus I need a superhero to save me. And really, like, the core of what I'm trying to do is to um, help shift people from a fixed to a growth mindset. And I really got to see this successfully with some of my students. Um, on the first day of class, so I used to work at a school where it was like really, really, really poor families, and a lot of the kids, had single parents, or sometimes not even like either parent in their life. And so really, really rough situations. And the kids were really withdrawn, didn't want to engage. And then I just went around and asked each kid what their superpower was. And they went from sitting back in their chairs, arms crossed, to being on the edge of their seat. And it was so great seeing them creating so much. Um, they I originally wanted to do a school magazine, but they ended up creating so much content that I had them do websites, so that they could basically create portfolios. Because if I had tried to do a school magazine, it would have been gigabytes of data. And these were kids that before I'd come, they couldn't even, they hadn't even completed, like most of them hadn't even completed one slide for a presentation, um, for a Google Slides presentation, and they had like 6 months to work on it. Um, so it, the difference was quite obvious. And this is its own presentation, but I really think that the hero's journey um, has a connection with spiral dynamics. And so we have the hero's journey too, and the superhero's journey. Um, that's definitely something fun to look into. And my definition of a superhero is that a hero is someone who helps people, and a superhero is someone who helps a lot of people. So anyone can be a superhero, and I think that's really important. And we all have it within ourselves to be a superhero if we so desire. All right. And so here is my Trojan horse in action. Um, so the top left, I'm actually signing 30 copies of my book for a program called Guardian Ad Litem. And you can see I have my little kid helpers. And so Guardian Ad Litem, they have an adult volunteer that helps kids navigate through the legal system. And these kids have been removed from their homes, so they don't have their parents in their life. So they really need they really need not only help from these volunteers for the court system, but they're in rough situations, like really rough situations. So that's why I'm really excited to be able to get the book to them. And I'm actually giving a talk to the volunteers next week about the book and how to connect with the kids, and concepts from the book. And then the books are eventually going to get to the kids too, which I think is great. And so then we have on the bottom left, I'm presenting to a school and to the teachers. And so that was obviously pre-COVID. And so on the right, we have, so that's a little girl and mom in the UK, where she was inspired by my book to go out and pick up garbage around the neighborhood. And the picture, so you can see that the mom's also picking up garbage as well. So that's the Trojan horse was successful. And on the very right, I sent her a video message thanking her for being a superhero. And the dad took that picture, while the little girl was watching my message. And as you can see, she was happy to receive that message. So cute stuff, good stuff, lots of positivity, right? And so I'm not going to read all the reviews or all of it, but these are just some examples of the Trojan horse in action, and some of the positive reviews and the book working. But yeah, I can share that later too. I don't think I need, because I'm not sure how late I am in time. Oh, I'm kind of late. All right, so now I'm going to go through the book. I don't have a ton left, but all right. So so this is the table of contents. I'm going to go through some parts of the book as well, but first we have, in my opinion, which is purple, finding your superpowers. Like, what is your superpower? And then we have, in my opinion, red, the superhero training. We have, exercise, nutrition, training our body and our mind. How are we becoming, a better warrior, so to speak? Having courage to face fears, because courage, in my opinion, is not the absence of fear. It's being afraid and acting anyway. And then I have some what I would consider orange challenges in there, and some green ways of thinking about, like helping people. And I definitely don't think that, there's 100% correlation necessarily with spiral dynamics, because, some of this stuff could be done at, of course, different levels of the spiral and in different ways. But I do think that it like touches on, what could be healthy parts of those levels of the spiral. And so I'll be super interested in what you guys are thinking, think on any of this. And, I welcome being wrong if it's, if you actually have some good information on it. So what exactly is a superhero? We touched on that a little bit. So this is a little bit of the book. So, because I think this is the first step, because we want to get people excited about being a superhero. Because like, if they're not excited about looking at the book, then then they're not going to read it. And so this is my way too of taking spiral dynamics action. This is like my way of, covertly or Trojan horsing the concepts in there to try to hopefully help myself and hopefully help other people, being more healthy, on that level of the spiral. But yeah, so here's my incentive for being a superhero, because lots of good stuff about it. Um, all right. So now we have um, find your superpowers. So what is your superpower? And so we all have superpowers, and I think it's like really important for us to even as adults think about it. And it's actually been kind of sad when I've asked most adults what their superpowers are. Like most of the time, like they're really stumped, or like say something like really depressing. And so I think that alone is very interesting, and um, it really speaks to a lot. Um, and I really think so. This is really its own presentation as well, and I really want to explore it, um, because I think it's so important. I think because purple is at such a base level. Um, it is so important to create positive stories for ourselves, for our environment. Like, what are we creating? Because we are the magicians of our life. Um, and what are some positive myths that we can make in our life? Um, and also that we can create for others too, because right now we have so many negative myths of like that you need to buy like all the consumerism and stuff like that, and people are trying to create these stories to manipulate our brain, that you need like the new coolest car, they need the new coolest shirt, um whatever it may be. Like there's a lot of stories out there and a lot of them aren't good. So what are some stories that we can create that are actually constructive? um I think so one thing that I had the kids do was after they identified their superpowers was they created stories, and pictures based on their superhero persona and their powers, and what so they created stories of themselves as superheroes. And I think that's actually great for us as well, because it can help us figure out like what is our ideal self, what is our ideal personal story. I think that's really, really huge, and I actually need to work on it more myself. And so um just like I mentioned before, the thank you. The this, I was gonna make a joke, but I'll pass. Using white magic with ourselves instead of the dark magic. And yeah, so I encourage you to think on what your superpower is. um Once you find your superpowers, what are ways that you can use them? What are some positive stories, myths that we can create with ourselves and others? The It switches a little bit. Yeah. What are the negative stories in this that we tell ourselves and that we see in society? I think that's really huge. What are the stories that we're telling ourselves that are not good and not helping us? Um, and this is a little bit too, but along with purple, like I didn't mention this in the book. I kind of did, well, I guess a little bit about like finding other superheroes and creating a team. But I think it's really important with purple, like who is in your tribe, like who are the people that you're spending the most time with. And I really like the concept that we're the average of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. It's something that I've been playing with a lot. So I think the importance of your picking your tribe is really important. Um, so now we have our superhero training our body and our mind. Um, and so I believe this to be kind of reddish, and important, of course. Um, and so blue, I couldn't figure out what to add for blue. So actually, when I was creating the book, I wanted to create a superhero code, um, and it just ended up being really, really long, and I still haven't figured it out. And so I would love people's input on this. But so what are the rules of the superhero? And these are my thoughts so far. Be good, think good, do good. This is something that I used to tell the kids at one of the schools that seemed to work pretty well. And there's an Epictetus quote that I can't find. I found it on my phone at one point, and now I can't find it again. Um, that spoke along with those lines. And another idea is be good to yourself. This is the first and foremost important rule. Be good to others and be good to the environment. So I'd be curious if you guys have any thoughts on that. And yeah, so originally I was going to put the superhero code on the website, but I still haven't figured it out because I didn't want to tell you the book. But I think it was pretty cool that I was thinking about this like even before really knowing about spiral dynamics. Um, and so now we have some orange challenges. Um, I put activities and some challenges in the book, and it would reward them if they submitted the activities, or told me a little bit about the challenges that would unlock a hidden part of the website and give them some access to some exclusive content. All right. Uh-oh, that's not good. I wonder why that didn't load. Let's try that. Try it again. Well, I guess we can kind of see it in, we know the presentation mode, or not the non-presentation mode. So I'm just going to touch on this like really quickly because I think I'm like pretty well. I guess I'm almost out of time, but I'm almost finished. So these are just what I think are some bluish, orange, greenish concepts, that the power and importance of saying hi. And I do realize that maybe different levels of the spiral have different reasons for saying hi, or for helping people, or for protecting the environment. But I do think that this creates some like bluish rules, and comes from a greenish place. And I have the orange challenges of say hi to 5 people in one day. Help at least one person a day. Pick up 5 pieces of garbage. And yeah, I didn't mean to switch that, but yeah. And so I know it's kind of loose, but I would love your guys' opinions on how I could maybe even tailor to each level even more. And so then we have green, coming together with other superheroes to create a superhero team, and potentially teaching others to be superheroes. And then I have the book conclusion where it says, I'm proud of you for becoming a superhero, and that they're awesome, and that the world is a better place thanks to you. And a little bit of orange where you help make a difference in the world. And even if, I guess orange is green, where if you only help one person a day, that's 365 people a year. So if you only help one person a day, like even just wave to one person, and brighten their day, that's 365 people that you've made happy. And yeah, so I think that it's like really important point to hit home. And actually, I want to go back real quick. With the power of saying hi, and I think even the power of working on our spiral. Like if we're able to approach encounters like in a healthy way, and like even just saying hi to people like makes them happy and brightens up their day, which I've seen it happen for myself personally like a million times. It's helping to make them happier, and then everyone that they encounter is helping make them happier. So it's really like a big ripple effect. And I really think that this is like the core power of like spiral dynamics, and like a real powerful way for us to use spiral dynamics in action, because like it can have like far rippling effects. And like getting people excited about these concepts, and even if they're not necessarily ready to learn about the spiral itself, but like the aspects of the spiral, the pieces that make it up, we can sneak it in there and have it like create like massive waves, create the ripple effect, or the butterfly effect, and reach many people. So that way, when they're ready to learn about spiral dynamics, then they have the foundation built for the Jenga tower. And so I just have 2 slides left. So these are some potential next steps for the book, and for to try to like push this concept a little bit more. I'm getting the book out into the world more, working with more organizations. Like I'm working with a homeless shelter that shelters children as well. Guardian Lightum, of course, Big Brothers Big Sisters, Vera in Kosovo. Hopefully the children's hospital. I have a doctor that's like really advocating for my work, etc. So really trying to get it to the kids that need it the most, and hopefully they're adults as well. Like a YouTube show, podcast, more books, especially short stories, demonstrating the concepts from the first book. A video game. I also do actually create video games, local online book readings, and working towards creating positive myths. This is something that I really want to talk more to you guys about. Like, what are the positive myths that we can create for ourselves and for others? And yeah, what do you think would be helpful? Here's my contact information, which I can put in the chat later on. And then just to wrap things up, these are the questions that I have, and I can post them in the chat as well. Whoa. Apparently I'm not very good at selecting. But yeah, so what do you think? What do you agree with me on? What do you disagree with me on? How can you use spiral dynamics to take positive action in the world? Once you find your superpowers, what are some ways that you can use them what are some positive stories in this we can create for ourselves and others? What are some negative stories in this that we tell ourselves and that we see in society? And so that wraps it up. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it.